Hi, welcome to another episode of the Ramblings of a Trucker. Today I've got a Bluetooth microphone, got it attached to my shirt, and I'm going to do this recording whilst I'm travelling up the A1 heading back to base. There's two reasons. If the quality is good enough and if there isn't a lot of background noise, then I'll be able to do more regular episodes of the podcast. I'm finding it really difficult to squeeze in the time to dedicate to doing it. When you're tramping, some people think you've got lots of time, you park up on a night, but you need that wind down time. You've also got to do your cooking, your cleaning, cleaning your cab, catching up with paperwork, catching up with emails, messages, calling loved ones, video calls, voice calls. And by the time you've done all of that, if you're only having 9 hours off, you just want to go to bed. You don't want to focus on doing a podcast episode. So I thought, well, I'll try a Bluetooth mic and see if the quality is good enough and if it allows me to just rabbit away, ramble, whilst I'm doing my job. Because it's not connected to my phone, it actually records onto the mic. I'm not using my phone whilst driving. So let's see how the episode goes. So something I wanted to talk about today, and it was something that I heard about that was happening in one state in America, Arkansas. I think they were the first to introduce it, and it's rapidly spreading throughout America, or through USA. And that is, in order to be a truck driver, you have to pass a language proficiency test. Now, this isn't like doing A-level English. You just have to prove that you've got a reasonable level of competency to talk, to listen, to understand, to read and to write the language of the country. And personally, I think it's a damn good idea. Now, I used to live in Spain, I had businesses in Spain, and I found whenever you wanted to do anything administrative, because I took a motorbike over there and I wanted to matriculate it onto Spanish plates, I went into the office responsible for doing it, and they just wouldn't entertain me, either using a translator or using my broken Spanish. They said in order to do anything in their country, I had to have a reasonable level of Spanish understanding and speech. So I had to go away, try and remember key phrases and words that were relevant to it, and introduce those into my then limited Spanish vocabulary. And then I went back and I was able to matriculate the first motorbike, and then by the time I did the second one, it was a piece of cake. But I struggle to understand why someone would move to a country and not try to learn the language when they want to work there. At the moment, they reckon there's 1 million people in the UK who don't speak English. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Alec, I know you ramble, but what's this got to do with trucking? Well, I did a delivery last week, and I'd backed onto a pit, and I was part way through tipping the load, and another truck came in. Now, this yard is tight. There's enough room for 3 trucks, but if there's 2 trucks in there, you've got to be a damn good driver to be able to blindside onto your bay. And that's what this driver had to do. So he came in, he did a shunt, and I'm watching him, and he did another shunt. And I don't like to go up to drivers and say, do you want a hand, blah, 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 because there's a pride thing amongst drivers. And we all like to think that we can do it without assistance. So I just tend to observe. And if I see someone struggling, or if I see that they stop, I'll go over and say, do you want a hand? Do you want me to watch your back? Do you want me to watch the front, your blind side, things like that. But I won't do it unless I see that they're struggling. So this guy, he seemed to be doing all right. And they stopped, he jumped out of the cab and he came over to me. Now, I knew what he wanted, but the problem and the reason for this episode is he couldn't speak in English to ask me to help him. So how does he go to customers and speak to them and, suppliers? Does he just write what he wants on his collection note and his delivery note and just hand it to them? Does he use a translate app on his phone, and is that how he gets through his working week? Now, some of you will know that I drive a bulk tipper, and because we do seed as well as aggregates, we're regulated by the task regulations. And the task regulations, you've got to keep records of the last 3 loads that you've carried for every load that you're doing. You have to carry or record when the trailer was cleaned, how it was cleaned, what was used to clean it. The outside of the trailer has got to be washed no more than every 2 weeks. And the inside has got to be washed and sanitised every 6 weeks. If you can't read and write or speak the language, how can you comply with that? Unless someone shows you, every 6 weeks just circle this box and put this date in. But that doesn't help the industry. Task was introduced into watching the traffic as I'm talking. It was introduced to maintain cleanliness and hygiene standards of tipper trailers. So you can't just put whatever you want on the sheet. You have to do it. There was a case a while back. I can't remember exactly when. I'm pretty sure it was E. coli. But there was something put into the food chain, and it was through a dirty grain sock. So the driver had been cleaning his trailer, been cleaning the outside, cleaning the inside, but he hadn't cleaned the grain sock. And this bacteria or whatever it is had started to develop in the grain sock. And then he delivered a product, and they tested it, and they found this bacteria. And they traced it back to this particular grain sock on this truck. So there's a valid reason for doing it. And when you come into tipper work in particular, you've got to do this. It's part of your job. And this is why you get paid more than just driving a container or just driving a curtain sider, because you have to maintain these hygiene standards. And I just wonder why companies are taking the risk employing people who can't speak the language, who can't read and write the language, when there's so much at stake. So how can these drivers, they come over here, they've got their foreign driving licence, and they're allowed to swap it for an English one, a British one. How can they read the highway code? If they can't speak and read and write the language, how can they read and understand the rules? And is this why we've got this sudden dominance of people who drive in the right-hand lane? I'm going up the A1 now, and there's more vehicles in the right-hand lane than there is in the left, and there's massive gaps in the left-hand lane. And everyone should be moving over to the left once they've overtaken the vehicle. The loose guideline when you're learning to drive is if you can move back for more than 7 seconds before you have to move out to overtake again, then you should move back in. So, wonderful example, a car's just overtaken me, put his left-hand indicator on, moved into the left-hand lane, It's still there, still there, still there. That's someone who understands the rules, who is trying to be a good driver. So anyway, back to the driving licences and the exchange, and people who exchange it, they're coming from countries where they have different rules. So how do they know what the British rules are if they don't speak the language? I think what they should introduce, the government, and it's going to be good for revenue too, but you can exchange your driving licence if you pass a theory test that's only in English and you can't have an interpreter. And I think there should be an English language test, just a basic one, for everyone who wants to be a professional driver. So, going back to the theory test to exchange your licence, the only people who are going to be able to swap for a British licence are the people who speak enough of the language to be able to read the highway code and pass a theory test. That's the reason behind that. Why apply it then to professional drivers? Well, let's put an umbrella over all the professional drivers. Obviously, you've got the truck drivers. We need to talk to suppliers. We need to talk to the end customer where we're delivering the product. If there's an incident, we need to be able to talk to highways agency, police, ambulance, fire brigade, worst case scenario, Coast Guard. If you haven't got those basic language skills, how can you do that? The same applies to coach drivers, but more so because coach drivers have to talk to their passengers. And if there's a problem, a passenger's unwell and they stop the coach on the hard shoulder, they need to be able to speak. And so what's wrong? What do I need to do? Do I need to call for an ambulance? Are you just travel sick? You need to have that understanding. And I think the same should be made compulsory for taxi drivers. I, for one, I use taxis quite regularly. I use them a bit for work, because if I drop my truck in for service and there isn't a courtesy car, I'll get a taxi. The taxi will take me back to the yard so I can get my car and go home. That's a straightforward journey, because you give them the postcode where you want picking up, the postcode where you want dropping off, and they just follow the sat-nav. But what if you're in a taxi and you want to just pop somewhere else before you go there, and the driver can't understand what you're saying? It's no good giving them these idiot boxes, these sat-navs, and just saying, no, just follow the sat-nav. Sometimes you need to be able to speak and understand with your customers. And not only that, when you're driving along the road, a lot of these drivers, truck drivers, who can't read and write and speak English, but they can drive a truck, and they can drive a truck well. They're following the sat-nav. What if there's a road closure, and on the matrix sign it says M1 closed, junction 26? They're not going to be able to read it. They're not going to know what to do. I know a lot of sat-navs, they pick up on road closures and they divert you off. But what if the sat-nav that person's using doesn't do that? There's lots of valid reasons why all professional drivers should be able to speak, understand, read and write English. And it's going to affect immigration. It's going to put a lot of people off coming to this country who would have a nice life here, who would work hard, who would benefit the economy and benefit the country. But the people that come here that don't speak English, and worse still, will not learn English. They absolutely refuse. They are not helping Britain as a country or the economy. So I'm going to wind this up because I don't know what the quality is going to be like. Like I said, it's the first time I've used this Bluetooth mic whilst I've been driving. I think this truck's reasonably quiet. I'll see what happens when I play it back. And if it's good, I'll upload it as a new episode. If not, I'm just going to have to re-record it. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed listening. I'd love to have some comments back. So if you've got any thoughts on what I've been talking about, leave a comment, send me a message, and I will try to get another episode up a lot sooner than this one. Thanks for listening. Bye.